Good afternoon and welcome to News and Views this Tuesday the 12th of February, and today we're going to be having Henri talking to us about underwater documentaries and shipwrecks as well. And following this, as always, we've got the Euro News and the national and the local news, including details about Greenpeace's warning of black spots for pollution in Spain, as well as a special signage for a school that's got about 30 different nationalities in it, in La Cala, and also tourism investment in Spain from the Andalusian government. But first of all, we're going to be talking to Henri. Welcome to the show, Henri.
Thank you very much.
Nice to see you again.
Okay.
In a different format.
Yes.
Different cap on. And Henri is director and producer and cameraman for many underwater documentaries, and he's got a lot of experience, and he's got quite a lot to tell us about as well. And I think you wanted to start perhaps with your background and how you got into documentaries.
Yes, I started filming when I was, I think, 11 years old.
Oh, goodness.
I nicked my father's camera. It was a clockwork camera. Hid it in my school bag and did some shots in the classroom. And I liked it very much. And later, I really wanted to go in the film industry.
It was in your blood.
It was in your blood, yeah. And so I did a photo school and film school in Amsterdam. And from there on, I got a job at the university in Nijmegen, and I gave lectures in film. And then I started my own company in underwater filming and normal documentaries, and from there on we started. How
come you chose underwater filming?
I started diving in 1962 or 63. So I was one of the first in the Netherlands. We had our logbook, and my logbook number was 300 something, 326. And for a long time I had my profession that was documentaries and filmmaking, and my hobby was diving. So I didn't want to mix them both, but slowly people started asking about could you do an underwater film, could you do this, or could you do that? I said, yeah, why not? Let me give it a try, and that's what I did. Okay.
I suppose there's a lot of very different. You've got to have special cameras and things like that, haven't you?
Yeah.
To be able to do it.
We showed the camera a little bit later. After the first documentary.
Yeah.
Because the documentary I wanted to show now is a documentary about the Arctic. It is 1596 when Willem Barents and Heemskerk wanted to find the route from Holland to China by the north, instead of going all the way down through along Africa. And so they said there must be a way going by the north, and they tried it already 3 times, and they said, okay, let's do it one more time and then we'll see what happens. Heemskerk returned to Holland halfway the trip. He said, I'm not going to do it. Barents said, okay, I'm going. And so they went with the sailing boat along Nova Zembla. And Nova Zembla is an island in the north of Russia. We were dropped there by a helicopter, and we can see maybe it on the map where it is exactly.
Imágenes del mapa, por favor. I think that'll be coming up in 1 second. Here we are. Yes, we can see it from here.
The red line you see is the helicopter flight we had to do. This island is as long as Italy. This is a map of 1600, and you can see the eastern part. They didn't know where it was and what there was. These are some pictures of a diary from one of the guys who survived the trip. He came back to Holland in 1600. This is the house, what it looked like, because the ship they had was crushed in the ice.
Okay.
Yeah. And they had to stay on the island. And what happened was that they had to build a house of the remains of the ship, and they had to stay there for a year waiting for the summer. Nova Zembla was an island closed until late 70s because the Russians did nuclear tests over there, and so everyone said it's too dangerous.
Too dangerous to go there, yes.
You can't go in there.
Yeah.
But we were brought in there with a helicopter, and the Russians said they would have water for us and they would have bread and meat and everything. And what happened was they didn't have anything. Mm-hmm. So we bought a couple of things in normal shops, and then we went with our helicopter to the island and we started excavating. Maybe we can have some shots of the people excavating.
Of the excavation. Más imágenes, la próxima imágenes, por favor. And so here we are.
You can see the water is not very clear we had. The helicopter was one of the old types of the Russians, and shaking and shaking and shaking, and we didn't feel very happy. It was, I think, a trip of about 800 kilometers we had to do. You can see the communications. Okay, so we landed at the north of the island, and from there on we started excavating. You can see the remains of the house.
Yes. That
was built in 1596, and this is an artist's impression of what it had looked like. Mm-hmm. You can see there are polar bears, and there's the house, and on the top of the house.
Of how it used to look in those days, yeah. Fascinating. I always find that fascinating when you find.
These are some finds we had, and they think it's a part of a window. Excavating there isn't quite easy because the temperature was -50.
Oh goodness!
And these guys were laying on the floor and excavating, and they are all archaeologists. Our team was Russians, like these guys. They said they would build our kitchen, and when you look at the kitchen, you can see what happened. And this was
keep
all
you
we
warm
had.
Anyway.
This was all we had. And the only day we had meat and a nice soup was this day, because all the Russians, we were 6 Russians and 6 Dutch archaeologists. The Russians put all the meat and all the potatoes in the soup, and that was the last time we saw it.
And that was it.
This is our dining room. And this is another moment, because the rest of the days we didn't have anything else but porridge.
Oh no, that's awful.
And I didn't like it at all. It didn't taste. It was just horrible.
You just thought with all that hard work you were all doing that you could have had something a little bit better.
These are some images of our compound. Little tent. The yellow tent you see there was one of the tents of the Russians. Mm-hmm.
They wanted to look a little bit different, and of course they're trying to find out what these finds are.
You find one of the archaeologists. He just found the remains of a shoe, a wooden shoe with a leather top, and he very carefully trying to see what's underneath it.
I would think it's a very difficult and technical thing to do.
It's a very delicate thing to do there, even there in the cold, and it was really cold over there. And we were lucky there was no snow when we arrived, because it was summer, but there is still permafrost, and so scraping. This was a very nice moment when I was there with the camera. We found a, how do you call it, a circle? I don't know the English name. Okay, forget about it. Polar bears, yes, because
they came to have a look.
Yeah, it's 24 hours light over there.
Yeah.
And because we are quite high up, and we had about 24 hours a day we had someone walking around with a rifle. And if there were polar bears, we had to shoot a flare or something, and to frighten,
discourage them,
to frighten them.
Yeah.
They even were on the ice, and because I'm a diver, they said maybe we can have we can look underwater to find the remains of the ship, the ship that was crushed in the ice.
Yeah.
But when I saw all the icebergs and the moving parts of ice, I said no,
it's too dangerous.
I'm not going to dive over there.
Yeah.
This was quite primitive because we were flown in with a helicopter and we couldn't bring much equipment. 1 year later we came back and we were on a vessel, an explorer, a Russian explorer vessel, the Ivan Kiryev, and so we could bring in a lot of equipment. We can have a look at the images now, I think.
Okay. Más imágenes, por favor. Yes, here we are. This is when you went back 1 year later.
This is, you can see the boat at the background, and we could build our own house as they did in 1500, and we had a real kitchen, a real dining room, and but excavation was the same.
Yeah. Excavation being the most important part of it all.
Yes, because we wanted to know exactly what happened in and around the compound over there.
And what sort of things came out from this? What was observed?
Later we have some pictures of it. We could even bring in some metal detectors, and with the metal detectors we found all very small and nice things. You will see what it is, what we found over there. It was just a little lead puppet. The same with this one. All the founds were taken to the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam, and you can see here some of the found we did.
Utensils, things for cooking with, things for building with, all that sort of thing by the looks of it.
Yes. Yeah. Candles, keys, and it was everything they took on the trip to China, and maybe to exchange or whatever.
And this is part of the wooden boats?
This is another shipwreck. This is the Amsterdam. And the Amsterdam was shipwrecked in 1749 at the coast of Hastings in England. We could only dive there at high water because now you can see the part that's still the beams sticking out, and the rest has disappeared in quicksand. The ship was on its maiden trip to Batavia, and after 1 month in the trip it was a big storm and they shipwrecked just before the coast of England. Excavating is
very different when you're doing it underwater.
Nearly the same as you saw in the Arctic. This is within an air hose, we call it, and very careful we have to excavate the ship, because this ship is like a kind of Pompeii. It disappeared in quicksand within I think 14 days.
My goodness.
And everything is still
intact
and on board.
Yeah. They're completely preserved, I would imagine.
Yes.
With it being quicksand, there's no air to...
Yes.
Yeah.
And the wine we tasted the wine.
Really?
Yeah, it was a Bergerac.
Oh my goodness.
1730 or something.
And a good wine at that?
No, because the salt had gone through the glass and through the cork. And these are also some of the found...
The types of shoes they wore in those days, and yeah, I can see all the different types of glass they had.
Yes, little bullets, and I can't remember what was inside this barrel.
Beer, probably.
No. But talking about the found we had in the Arctic, this is a small piece of the house where we.
It's amazing, isn't it?
We
That's
found.
actually, how old is that then?
This is more than 400 years old.
More than 400 years old.
Yeah. And you saw these shots of the while diving. Therefore, we used an underwater camera like this. It's it's a huge housing with a camera inside. If we can't get it out. If
It looks
can't,
very heavy.
okay. Here, I can change the aperture, and with this one, I can change the distance. But as you can see, at the other side, the viewfinder is very, very, very small. You have to be very, very careful with
Very
the camera.
precise.
Yeah, and also because when you go underwater, there is a film spool in it with only 3 minutes. So when I push the button, I need to be sure that I'm going to use the shot, because otherwise
it's wasted.
It's a waste, because it is only 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. Oh goodness.
with this camera, I started my underwater career, and I wanted to do a film for myself. Cousteau was in those days one of the guys everyone was looking at.
Yeah, I think most people remember Jacques Cousteau and his underwater documentaries. Yeah.
And when he was filming, it was always dangerous or adventure, or there was always a little bit of
Edge there. Yeah.
action, and I wanted to turn it around. Sometimes what he did, if there was a difficult shot, he shot it in an aquarium. And he edited it in a way that you couldn't see it was in an aquarium. And I wanted to do it the other way around. I wanted to start my film in an aquarium. And
with everybody seeing that that's the aquarium. Yeah.
Yeah. In those days, I'm talking about late 80s, we didn't have aquariums with those big tunnels you could walk through.
Yeah.
No, an aquarium was an aquarium in a
exactly.
zoo.
Oblong, yeah, that's
in
right.
a zoo.
Yeah.
And all the shots, underwater shots, were really underwater. But the guide was on this side of the glass, and he was just pointing out fish. And it was a real new thing of underwater filming, because nobody had done
It's
it
a new
this
concept.
way. And for me, it was also trying to find out how far can I go in my editing, because the guide is on this part of the glass, and there's nothing here, and only underwater shots. So the people on this side of the glass had to look at something they didn't see, because in the editing we put everything together, and when the guide points at something,
and then they see it.
then they didn't see it, but in the editing, yes, I put it together.
Okay.
And with this film, I won the Palme d'Or at the film festival, and from that moment on, I was asked to be a member of juries in film festivals all over the world, in underwater film festivals.
Underwater film festival.
Yeah.
Perhaps we could see some of the images, the más imágenes, por favor, of the there. This is what you were talking about, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can have the sound with it, I think. Because I had to introduce divers in the aquarium, and this little boy was blowing air in this in a little tin. And for me, that was the moment that I could introduce the divers, because now the guy hasn't got a clue where the sound is coming from. He thought it was the little boy blowing in this in the tin, and that is the moment I introduce the divers.
Yeah. Yes, I see what you mean.
So
very clever way of doing it.
Yeah, and
very different.
Yeah, and it's a film with a lot of humor, because the guide speaks Dutch, French, English in a mishmash, and But we had some real information also about the fish, the names of the fish,
Yes.
and what they look like, and
Their natural habitats.
how they move,
Yeah.
and what they do.
And what type of fish is that?
It's a triggerfish.
Triggerfish. Never heard of one of those.
No?
No, never. Oh, those I've seen.
This was the best thing, because the divers wanted to do a trick with the guide, because he was always telling about fish, and they said, I will get the guide, and so they made a little trick. And even the fish.
Even the fish were fooled.
were tricked. It's okay, and then there's a moment where the diver finds the little Coca-Cola can.
Oh, yes. Pollution.
He swims up. You can see.
Who did that belong to?
Yep. He swims up, throws it into the.
Yeah.
So this is the way I try it in the editing to put everything together.
Yeah.
And
no, it's good, and it reminds people not to throw things.
oh yes.
Not to throw them in the sea.
So there were a lot of items in this film. It's about pollution, not feeding the fish in the water, not touch the fish, and.
No, because they're very sensitive, and you've got chemicals and things that can affect
no,
them.
no. You have to leave the fish in their environment, and not. There were people going on the water with eggs, for instance, and feeding them to fish or chicken bones or whatever. And you think, hang on, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Let the fish.
Let the fish be.
Be a fish.
Yeah.
I think the next.
I think you did some special things for simulators. You were asked to do, weren't you?
Yeah. While living in Singapore, I was asked to do a 3D underwater film. Could you do that? Yes, of course. I could do it. So we went underwater with a 3D camera, and I had to do some shots of sharks and wrecks. And the nice thing was that you could see the sharks coming out of the screen, you know?
Yes, as if they were coming towards you.
And it was a huge camera we had to work with. I had about 6 divers in the water to help with as you can see, with the cable. On board of the vessel we had the crew of Sony working on the aperture, on color balance, on the distance, because it's very, very difficult to do a 3D underwater film. And these shots came out very, very nice because...
Beautiful colours on that coral.
Because the little fish, they're swimming nearly in your face when you look at it. But it was a kind of a story we had to do underwater in wrecks in Micronesia. And because I had to work with the crew of Sony, it was a little bit different because these are Japanese wrecks. And
they're from these wrecks are actually in Japan, and there's some of the graveyards, aren't they?
Between America and Japan. And they were bombarded by the Americans. And it's a graveyard.
Yeah.
It's a holy place for the Japanese, so we had to be very careful with our shots, because otherwise Sony would say, we're going home and we're not going to do it.
Yeah.
And it was also quite difficult for me because I had to move the camera. And normally I like to let the things move into my view, but here you can see the camera, it's a real big thing, difficult to manipulate.
Very awkward looking. Very.
And here we go inside the wreck, and most of the things were also still intact over there, and you can't be claustrophobic because...
No, it wouldn't suit me, that's for sure. It's fascinating.
Yeah, and also it was quite dangerous because what you see here are still grenades. and we couldn't touch a thing because I was scared that if we
You defend, yeah.
if we would touch and one of the grenades, it would go off.
Yeah,
Or,
yeah.
and
It's something that very, very special thing to do, I would imagine.
yeah, it was the first time Sony went underwater with the camera. So it was the first production we did with a 3D camera underwater, and it came out
very well.
It came out very
by the looks of
nicely.
it. And are you still involved in some way with documentaries?
At the moment, I'm retired,
Okay.
but I can't leave the camera at home.
No, I
And,
can imagine it's in your blood, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And what I do, and maybe there are people having problems with putting their VHS into a computer or whatever, I can help.
Yeah.
And the other thing I'm doing, I'm working a lot for estate agents, doing their houses.
Doing the
and
photography side and
yeah,
putting it together.
put them on a DVD,
Yeah.
and then they put them on their website or produce 500 or 600 copies of it and distribute them.
Okay. Thank you very much for talking to us today. It was really fascinating, very interesting.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure that all of you out there watching found it fascinating too. And now we're going to go to the Euro News, followed by the national and the local news.